Dear students, hope you all are fine. In this video, we will do the chapter The Happy Prince written by Oscar Wilde. Before I begin with the chapter, let me introduce the author to you. Oscar Wilde was an Irishman who wrote in various genres. Oscar Wilde was born in Dublin to an Anglo-Irish couple, Jane Ilge and Sir William Wilde. Jane Wilde read young Irelanders' poetry to her children, inculcating a love of these poets in her children. Until he was 9, Oscar Wilde was educated at home, where a French nursemaid and a German governess taught him their languages. He attended Portora Royal School in Enniskillen. He left Portora with a royal scholarship to read classics at Trinity College, Dublin from 1871 to 1874. Trinity, one of the leading classical schools, placed him with scholars such as R. Y. Tyrrell, Arthur Palmer, Edward Dowden, and his tutor Professor J. P. Mahaffy, who inspired his interest in Greek literature. At Trinity, Wilde established himself as an outstanding student. He came first in his class in his first year, won a scholarship by competitive examination in his second, and his finals won the Berkeley Gold Medal in Greek, the university's highest academic award. While at Magdalen College, Wilde became particularly well known for his role in the aesthetic and decadent movements. By his third year, Wilde had truly begun to develop himself and his might, and considered his learning to be more expansive than what was within the prescribed texts. This attitude resulted in his being rusticated for one term after he had returned late to a college term from a trip to Greece with Mahaffy. Walter Pater and John Ruskin's work had a great influence over Wilde's life. Pater gave Wilde his sense of almost flippant devotion to art, and was taught by Ruskin that the importance of art lied in its potential for the betterment of society. Wilde won the 1878 Newdigate Prize for his poem Ravina. His writings include the novel, the short story, fairy tales, poetry, dramatic literature, and essays. He was an active supporter of the aesthetic movement of the last decade of the 19th century, which had as its motto art for art's sake. In his only novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray, which brought him fame, he combined the supernaturalism of Gothic fiction with features of decadent writing prevalent in France. He was well known for his wit and bold, unconventional way of life. Apart from the novel and the poem mentioned, some of his notable works include Lord Arthur Saville's Crime and Other Stories, A House of Pomegranates, The Soul of Man Under Socialism, A Woman of No Importance, An Ideal Husband, The Importance of Being Earnest, and many more. Now, let me, students, introduce you to the story The Happy Prince. The theme of the story, The Happy Prince, is selfless love. It is the highest virtue when one helps others even while suffering oneself. The prince, a statue, wished to help the poor, starving people of the city. He first gave away the ruby from the hilt in his sword, then both his eyes of sapphire, and finally the gold leaves covering his body. As a result, he became blind and began to look dull and grey. The swallow, who had been obeying all his commands, had intended to fly to Egypt, a warm place. But now that the prince turned blind, he decided to stay with him even in the cold, snowy winter. So strong was their bond of love that when the swallow fell dead at his feet, the prince's heart broke. The townspeople pulled down the statue and threw the broken heart on a heap of rubbish. But God's angels chose the dead swallow and the broken heart as the two most precious things in the city. Now, if we again get back to the beginning of the story, it is about an initially self centered swallow who, on his hunt for shelter for the night, meets the statue of the happy prince. As you can see, he settled down at his feet. Throughout the story, we notice the swallow helping the happy prince distribute his jewels and gold throughout the city, making civilians happier and healthier, masking the true ugliness that resides there. What is notable here in the story is the change that we see in both the characters. While in the beginning of the story, the swallow only thought about himself, likewise, we know that the prince, when he was alive, never saw the truth of the city in which he lived, as he was surrounded by the riches that he was brought up with. Most people see the relationship formed between the swallow and the happy prince as making both characters less selfish. But did it really happen, my dear students? So let's read the story and find it out. So we will do this in the next video. Till then, bye and have a nice day.